Ba-dum. Let's see. I'm going to reload my page. Should be jumping in here. If you're following me on the Facebook group, you're in the right place. If you're... Dang it, I forgot to change the title again. Oh well, can I edit this? I can. Okay, I'm going to edit the post and call it Launches Live. Let's see if that does it. So you should be joining me here. Wow, okay. Looks like it... Cool. Facebook, you let me update it in the middle of a live stream. Yeah, come on in, everyone. I can see the eyeball stacking up quickly. 100% increase in less than a minute. It sounds statistically phenomenal, but that just went. I mean, it went from 1 to 2. Now it's 4. So we're still sticking with that 100% increase, 100% growth rate. Got in an argument with somebody in my HOA through email, which is always fun, and mainly that's the main reason we got an HOA in our neighborhood, was so I could argue with people. They were trying to. There's an increase in one of the line items in our budget that I was pouring through, as one is wont to do, and and I called out this number that someone else had mentioned. Hey, this is a 355% increase year over year from 2019 to now. And so I was like, hey, we just need to figure out information about that. And this person responded back with, actually, it's a 455% increase. And of course, they were being an asshole, too. There was other things they said in the email. So I was like, oh, fuck you. And I wrote back, I was like, well, actually, it's this number, which is 100% to this number. And so the increase in is actually 355%, because you don't do 455%. Yes, it's 455% of the previous number, but that previous number isn't 0. It's a number that's 100% of that number. Didn't seem to click for them, and they were just like, yeah, it's 455%, and I'm right, and you're wrong, and I'm an asshole. Sometimes you just gotta let assholes be assholes, but I'm in a bad mood today. Joan asked how the remodel's going. That's how it's going. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm mad. I'm not mad. Mad. That's too nonfiction writer of a word. I'm discouraged today, I think is probably the right word. It's my wife's birthday today, and I feel like we had a good morning, but it never feels like enough. I never feel like I'm doing enough, and so that kind of sucks. It's a me thing. It's not like I just need to do more, but no, I mean, the remodel's fine, Joan. It's going to be really cool. I'm basically, I'm using this cabinet paint, used this cabinet paint to do my built-ins, and there's no windows or anything in there, so there's really no airflow, and I halfway blocked the vent in the room anyway, which is kind of funny. So then I read the packaging, and it's going to take 2 weeks with airflow and windows and all that stuff to fully cure. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to wait that long. But I don't know if I have a choice, because I'm going to throw a poly on it, a couple coats to kind of seal it and give it a little bit of hardness. But I really need that paint to cure. It's just a little soft, right? So if I put something on it, it chips away and peels away. It's frustrating. Then I started building my desk, which is it's going to be black walnut with some black epoxy in the middle. Huge thing. It's 8.5 feet long, and 30 inches deep. So it's a massive desk. It's going to be really nice in that room, and I know how to do that. Right? That's. I was telling my wife yesterday. I was like, I'm no expert. I'm no pro woodworker, but I literally ran a woodworking company for a minute out in Hawaii. I had a full shop and everything, and I've done this before, and so. I was excited to get started yesterday. I had this big block of wood that I bought from an old rotting tree, and which is what I wanted, because it's gonna have figuring and all that fancy stuff. And so I brought it home and got it all set up. And I had to borrow a circular saw because I don't have any of the same tools. I mean, we sold everything when we moved back here to Colorado, and so I borrowed a circular saw, and it just wouldn't work. It just would drive into the wood and immediately stop. So I tried to go in shallow, same thing. So I was frustrated because I'm like, I know how to do this, and this isn't working, and the tools aren't working. Everything's mad. I'm just mad, and I texted to Megan, the gal I borrowed the saw from. She's like, well, try tightening the bolt. And I'm like, oh my god, if it's that, I'm gonna be so I'm gonna be so annoyed. And that's exactly what it was. I tightened up the bolt to hold the blade on, got through it, and it was all fine. So anyway, I had a little bit of an up yesterday with that. Once I conquered the saw, I split my table in half and flipped them over, started working on the wood to kind of just really get it into shape. I'm excited about that. I can't wait to show you guys the project so far. But I'm discouraged also because I'm launching a book. And yes, this is a segue. Hope you like it. I'm launching my book, The Russian Betrayal, hopefully in the next few days. It's been on pre-order. It's supposed to release like in March 2024, but I always put it out as long as possible because I like to procrastinate and then I forget and then I get in trouble and lose the ability to do pre-orders. So it's going to drop here in another few days. It's book 15 in the Harvey Bennett series. But I'm frustrated. I'm just discouraged because the Amazon side of my sales is lower because I've pulled a bunch of books off of Kindle Unlimited to go wide, and I just have so much shit going on that I feel like I haven't been able to upload anything on the time frame that I wanted. So I'm kind of in this limbo, and that means no money, right? It's obviously not no money, but I'm seeing Amazon sales down. I know why. It's because there's aren't that many books in Kindle Unlimited anymore, so I'm not making any money from them. And they're not over here on Drafted Digital. They're not wide because I just haven't had the time to upload them and get them. Some of the ones that I can upload, I'm like, I don't want to upload them until I've gone through them again. One of them, I want to change one series from first person to third person. That's a daunting task, and I don't really want to do that. So there's all this crap that I've got going on, and you all know the stuff with Book Career in a Year. I'm trying to push that forward. I am really excited though about the implementation call we're going to do tomorrow with those of you in that cohort. Hello, Joan. It's really cool. It is paid. It's $29 a month. Okay, but you get minimum 3 hours of my time plus there's like homework and stuff that I'm giving you, and I know that I haven't been as communicative about that because another thing that I have to deal with is stupid author email delivery servers breaking and emails aren't going out the right way, and it's just a huge mess. John's, you bounced back, dude. I thank you for saying that. I am resilient. I'm nothing if not resilient, and I feel like through the anxiety and depression, resilience has always been there for me. So yeah, I think I'll bounce back. I just wish it would. I wish it'd be a little quicker. That's what we talked about last week, right? Like it's not about, or maybe a couple weeks ago, it's not about not having problems. It's about recognizing that, hey, this is life, and we're gonna push forward and get through it. So we're gonna get through it. But yeah, today we're talking about launches because I've got a launch coming up imminently. I've got another one coming up with a co-writer that we want to get out as soon as possible. And then I've got one coming up for Conundrum Publishing here in a few days / week. I think Halloween Day. That's what it is. Halloween 31st. Yeah, Matt said someone was saying they had good luck using ChatGPT to change tenses. That's exactly my move. That's what I'm going to do. I played with this early on when I was a beta tester for Pseudo-Write. They had there was no button or any way to do this, but you could actually use filtering techniques. So it was basically like writing some Boolean logic, some code that would do that, and it did okay. But I've had better luck with ChatGPT. Now I haven't played with that since it was in beta at Pseudo-Write, so theirs might be better now. But I'm going to have ChatGPT do that. But the thing is, you don't want to release that without really pouring over it, manually, like with your eyeballs, in other words, get it edited, right? And so I don't want to spend the money on an editor, but I don't want to do it myself because I don't have time. I think what I'll do, Matt, is there's a hockey game. There's always a hockey game coming up, so I'll just next hockey game I'll toss it on there, and we'll go. Carla asked, why do I want to change the tense? No, that's a great question. I don't know, because I always want to do more work than I need. It's probably fine. I think the books are fun. They're good stories, and I don't know that it really matters. But these are in the thriller genre. This is the Mason Dixon series that I'm talking about, by the way. If you're familiar with my stuff, this is a tongue-in-cheek, kind of edgy crime, but it's got a lot of comedic stuff in there because I'm a baby and I can't handle like true crime stuff. So yeah, I figured Robin, if she was watching, she'd be like, "Yep, let me help with that. I will. Anybody, raise your hand. I'll pay you. Do it. Just give me a price. I'm not even going to go with the lowest bidder, but just let me. I'm happy to take bids on that." Anyway, to answer your question, Carla, so Lee Child is probably pretty well known. Jack Reacher. His first book in the Jack Reacher series was in first person, and all of the subsequent ones are third person. Sorry, let me turn on my focus. Ryan Z is bugging me. Texting me. Just to name drop a little bit. Point is, I felt like maybe third person is kind of what we do in thrillers. That seems to be what a lot of authors do. I don't know if they're just trying to copy everyone else or if there's actually some reason sales wise that they would be doing it. But I wanted to test it. Unfortunately, it is a daunting test. You had to do a lot of work to even be able to test it. But let's change the subject a little bit. I'm discouraged, but I'll be okay. I'll bounce back. I want to talk about launches because that's what's on my mind. I don't have notes because I don't need them for this one. This is something that I can talk all day about. Hopefully, though, the lack of notes doesn't interfere with my ability to stay organized and on track. But what I want to do is this. We're talking about... I didn't know that, Robin. There's other readers in first person. I thought they were all third. I want to talk about launches. There's two main strategies that I use. So I'll give you kind of a high-level overview of those. We'll dig in a little bit. I want to read questions while we're going. So if you have one, drop it in. You know the drill. If you're watching from somewhere else, you're a loser. No, I'm just kidding. You're an amazing person. Thank you. But I won't be able to see those questions. So come over to the Facebook group. Drop your question. I will either get to it in situ as we go. I don't know if that's the right term. I'll use that. In medias res. I don't know. I don't speak Latin. Or I will do it at the end, and I may ask you to re-up or copy-paste your question again, because I can only see the last four on Facebook, because Facebook's amazing. So we're talking launches. I have two main strategies for launches, and they are not so creatively called slow launch and fast launch. You may have heard me talk about this a little bit, or at least allude to it in the past with some other things we've talked about, like promotions, marketing basics, that kind of stuff. Now, I fully intend to do a deeper dive into this with an overview call, an implementation call, a Q&A call that are all separate with homework and actually kind of working through some of this stuff with you guys. That sort of thing happens. That's what the Author Ascend program is. And I'm not here trying to sell you stuff. I am saying if this isn't enough, we have 45 minutes to an hour to really dig into some stuff. If it's not quite enough for you, check that out. Please, it's there for your success. It's called Author Ascend because I want to get you from here to here. Ascend, you go up, right? And I'm not going to be the guy doing it all the time. I'll bring in experts. We'll talk about book covers with Dave, that kind of stuff. The best part is $29 a month gets you access to everything we've done in the past as well. Okay, so but don't wait. Don't go wait till 3 years from now and then pay $29 and then try to get all the stuff because it's not downloadable. The way it works is it's got to be on the server. Otherwise, it doesn't really help you because there's some interaction stuff that I'm building in with my team. Point is, go check that out. That's at BookCareerInAYear or learn.bookcareerinayear.com, and you'll see on the top a little thing that says join the club. You can do that. You can also go to videos and you can see all of these live streams for free if you're logged in. I believe I imported everybody who was on my old system to the new one. You'll see those videos. You'll also see the Author Ascend videos, but you can't access them until you pay because, money. Anyway, okay, sales stuff over. We're talking about launches. The two big strategies are slow launch, fast launch. Now, these are the way I define them, and these don't have to be the way that anyone else defines them, but just for the sake of this talk, I define them this way. A fast launch is trying to do a lot right away. Okay, trying to launch a book quickly, trying to put a bunch of effort, time, energy, money, whatever, at it in a shorter amount of time, comparatively, right? So I'm not really going to define the time frame, but usually we're talking launch day or launch days, maybe 1, 2, 3 days after launch. And launch meaning when the book goes live on Amazon or when the book goes live in whatever stores you're selling in. Doing this in a fast launch way has sort of been the de facto standard for as long as we've had Kindle. As long as we've had Kindle Unlimited or the Kindle program, KDP, we've done fast launches. And I say we, meaning collectively as indie authors, that's been sort of the main way of launching books, right? You get a book, hey, the book's ready, it's been edited, it's been all the stuff that we have to do to get that ready. we upload it, we click go, and then that's the launch. And then we've elaborated on that fast launch by adding things like promotions, marketing, advertising dollars, social media, talking about the book, right? Going to do some book signing. All of that culminates and kind of collects on that main launch day or days. That's how I'm defining a fast launch. A slow launch, on the other hand, is comparatively a lot longer of a process. So rather than a launch day where we're trying to put all of our investment toward that one day or a few days, we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 weeks of promotional things happening around that launch. Now, if you are with me at Conundrum Publishing, there's a couple people here on from that, or if you've heard me talk about this before, you know that what I typically like to do is the latter approach, the soft launch. But I'll explain why. But the point is I wanted to give you both because you can succeed either way. Okay, you can succeed by doing either one of these things, or a third or fourth or fifth way that I don't even know about or that I'm talking about. There are other ways to do it. You can kind of combine forces a little bit. But the reason I separate these two and don't just say, hey, do a huge launch on day one, like a fast launch, but then also do a slow launch and, over time, is money. Usually it comes down to an investment that we don't have. We can't do both as an author, as an independent solopreneur. So we have to focus on one or the other. Do we want to take X amount of dollars and put it all toward this fast launch? Or do we want to take X amount of dollars and kind of split it up and do it over time? And there's pros and cons to both, which we're going to dig into. But generally, that's how I would approach both of these. I'd say, well, what's really the investment we're working with here? What do I have? What are the resources and tools that I have? Maybe I've got a big mailing list. Maybe I've got an unlimited budget. Maybe I've got a huge Instagram account with a bunch of followers. These are things that can help you figure out which one of these approaches is the one you want to do. But I don't recommend trying to do both, because you're basically going to shoot yourself in the foot with using resources for one that you could be using on the other. Does that make sense? So if you want to do a fast launch or a big promotional push on day one, go for it. But don't try to also do a huge soft launch over time. Does that make sense? So one or the other. Here's how I break down this idea of a fast launch. Time, energy, money, resources that we have. These are the things that I will put toward day one. Okay. Now, a little bit of clarity that we need to talk about, because inevitably there's some buildup that we probably want to do as well, regardless of the launch. So let's talk about that real quick, just to get that out of the way, because I really do want to focus on just launch, starting on day, the day it goes live on whatever store. But this pre-launch stuff, I believe, is really powerful too. And the good news is, if you do any sort of pre-launch and approach it that way, you can combine the pre-launch with either of the fast launch or slow launch, right? Again, guys, this is just how my mind is. It doesn't have to be what you do, but I'm trying to help you out here. Don't just wait until launch day or days to do your fast launch or slow launch, which is another reason why I say don't try to do both of those things, because usually you want to use some of that resource in the pre-launch. The benefit of this is somewhat obvious. You get a little bit of early juice, kind of early growth, getting people interested in the book and engaged with what's going to happen. Maybe teasing some things out, like I love the cover. I might do one of these today where you have the cover like wrapped up and there's a piece like tearing on. You can do like a cover reveal. Those are cool. Those do really well on social media. People get interested, they get engaged, they may even click over. And I believe during this pre-launch phase, you should have a call to action. Right? I believe that for just about anything you put on the internet. And in this case, your call to action could be go buy the book on pre-order if you have it available for pre-order, or go sign up for the mailing list and get an exclusive, short story, or give them a reason to do it. But then say that, sign up for the list and I'll tell you when the book launches, you can get it, early access, whatever. Okay, so pre-launch stuff, there's a lot more you can do, obviously, but that's just an example. But think in terms of, what resources do I have that, I want to use for the pre-launch phase, which is maybe a week or two, could be longer. Typically, though, guys, what I'm going to do during a pre-launch is spend the resources that are not money. So I'm going to put some time investment in. I'm going to put some energy investment in. I may hire somebody to do, promotional graphics and stuff, but I'm not going to be spending money on advertising in my pre-launch. Okay, and this is a little different than what other people might tout. And they're not wrong. That's different ways of doing different things, right? Skinning cats and all that. The way I look at this is during my pre-launch, I want to generate buzz and interest. so that when I launch the book, they're not seeing it for the first time. Okay, they're ready to buy because I've warmed them up. I'm not asking for the sale early on. So for that reason, I'm not going to spend ad dollars early on. Okay, if you do have a deeper pocket than what I'm usually dealing with, then you certainly can. You can certainly, kind of warm up those algorithms by sending people to your pre-launch pages, your social media stuff. You can boost posts, all that kind of stuff. There's no reason not to do that if you have the money for it. But I don't want you to pull from the budget for the launch and use that for advertising the pre-launch. Fair? Okay. So my pre-launch campaign will usually be 2 weeks, maybe 1 week if I'm really lazy, maybe one day like what I'm doing right now, or just forget about it entirely. But I'm just trying to get people interested in what's about to happen. Okay, and I personally don't do a very good job at this. I'm always last minute. I'm always thinking in terms of, well, let me just get it out there so I can start making money. So whatever you do for your pre-launch, just consider that a different investment bucket than what you're using for your launches. Don't say I have $500 to launch in ads to launch the series or book. I'm going to use half of that for the pre-launch. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just forego the advertising spend. Use that all for the launch. Okay. So let's talk about that launch. Day's coming. You've done some pre-launch. Maybe you haven't. Whatever. You are going to do a fast launch. Great. That implies you're going to put everything you've got at that launch day. In the past, that has been a very powerful way of launching a book because we get what we call spikes, right? So if you pick a picture graph, the sales are obviously zero because the book doesn't exist, and all of a sudden big spike, and then it goes back down to a number non-zero, right? A higher number than zero. So the idea is you spike, and because of the spike, Amazon goes, ooh, this is interesting. What do we have here? And then it goes back down to 15 books a day or 30 books a day or 1 book a day, whatever that tail is. And it's usually a curve, right? It's like a spike, and then it kind of curves down over time. That's why we call it a tail, because it gets thinner. Whatever that tail is your post-launch. Whether or not the book is successful really is that I define that by what that tail looks like. In the past, Amazon has rewarded these spikes a lot more than they do now. Okay, that's one of the reasons I usually prefer to do a soft or slow launch. So these tails used to be, you'd get a big spike and then it would go down like halfway and then it would kind of stay there and it'd be pretty flat. It would take a long time to get back down to zero or, whatever non-zero number with no promotion it would be. And then some people juice those a little bit by then turning on ads, especially if it's later in the series. They might turn on some ads to book 1. They can keep that tail going, longer as much as possible. Is my hand even in the... Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen this before. This is the phenomenon that we've started to discover existing in almost every digital. I believe it exists offline as well. But Chris Anderson wrote a book called The Long Tail, and it was really about SEO, keywords, algorithms, that kind of things, and music. He used music as an example of artists that are selling on Spotify. Back in the day, I think it was Napster, Rhapsody, whatever. Anyway, the point is, we can now measure this really well because we have digital tools, right? So Amazon tells us how many sales we have. We can see what the spike is. I am no scientist, but I've tested this ad nauseum, and I have determined that Amazon doesn't like to launch books this way anymore. It much prefers slow sales, slow growth over time. And I don't mean slow in terms of, 1 book at a time. I just mean slow as in ramping up too quickly freaks them out. So if you ramp up like this, it's better than if you ramp up like this. Consequently, the drop-off is slower as well. Okay, and so if you have a big spike on day 1, yeah, you might make $1,000, but then day 2 you're going to make 200, and then by day 30, after that Amazon cliff is what we call it, you might find yourself making $15 on that book, right? And so things get a little tricky when. Sorry, I'm clicking things because I'm those are notes. Yeah, okay, I already knew that. Things get a little tricky because we don't always have the tools in place, mathematically speaking, if you're me, to determine whether or not that big spike with a quicker tail is better or worse than that kind of slow growth one with the slow tail. I'm here to tell you I have determined that generally every time I don't want the big spike. I don't want the real sharp peak and valley. I want a little slower, which is why I go toward the slow growth. Anyway, the big launch these days, in order for it to even work, you really have to have some investment coming in, either time, energy, or money, right? So you really need to be putting in the mailing list or the newsletter swaps, and they all have to culminate on that day to get a huge spike. You can still benefit from some organic reach. And when I say Amazon, guys, I'm talking any bookstore, right? Amazon's the big one. They're the obvious one. They're the one we usually go to first, even if we're not in Kindle Unlimited. They have, believe it or not, the best tools for tracking all this stuff. And what I like about doing this at Amazon is their organic engine really does work. It just takes more to kind of kick it into gear these days, during a fast launch, right? So, for example, if I were to launch this book tomorrow and do a fast launch, I would need to have 100,000 people come at it and look at it, and maybe not all buy it, but it needs to tell Amazon, hey, people are checking this out. And then it knows based on IP address, and people are logged in as they're checking who they are and what they typically like. And so they're going, okay, the people that bought, these people will also like this thing that they bought. So if there's some sales coming in, then maybe we'll send that to those people who didn't see this book yet, but may want it, right? That's what the algorithm does. And so in a fast launch, I want to send 100,000 people to that page because, first of all, I have a mailing list that's that size. I know that's awesome, and I'm lucky. But if I can send that many people, whether it's through my own mailing list or through newsletter swaps and shares or from Facebook or social media, I can get that many people who are arguably already in my genre, who like to read this kind of stuff. I'm not talking about sending mom and your aunt and your dog. People who read your book to that Amazon sales page. A good portion of them will probably buy it, or they'll click it in Kindle Unlimited. And so, yeah, you're going to get a lot more sales on day one, but you're really kicking that algorithm into gear going, hey, this is a new book. You like new stuff, Amazon. We already know that. You like the recency bias is real with you. It's relevant now, and people are buying it, and you know, Amazon, who else might want it. And so that algorithm starts to kind of kick into gear and drive people over to it. So your launch on day one, it's a little harder than it used to be. Let's just put it that way. But it's not impossible. You just have to put a lot more eyeballs on that page. And one of the ways to do that is to use ads. This is tricky for a fast launch because a lot of times these days, guys, ads is just testing. Okay, that's all ads are, just testing. People feel like they're wasting. Actually, Nicholas Eric sent an email out this morning. If you don't follow him, I recommend it. He's got a good name. He writes about this kind of stuff, and he even gave a whole thing about the 80-20 rule when it comes to testing ads specifically. He's talking about how everything is testing. It's so true. Like if you get on Facebook and start ads, they're not just going to work. It's not because Facebook hates you. It's because, well, they do want to make money, but they don't know who to put it in front of. And so it becomes the process of testing and iterating and optimizing. You've all heard that before, but the frustrating part is when you're trying to do a fast launch, you can't test it because it's not for sale yet. And when it is for sale, by the time you finish the test and figure out what works, it's 3 weeks later or a month later. And so it gets really, really challenging to use ads, especially if you haven't done this in the past. Okay, so I know some guys who are, one's a military science fiction writer, and he loves to do this fast launch kind of thing, but he'll put a book up for pre-order for a long time. One, because that's what he's always done, and so his readers know they can always go get the next book at the end of the book. That's a good strategy. So he gets a lot of pre-orders built up, and he uses that pre-order campaign to test. So he'll run a Facebook ad to the pre-order book. Generally, I don't recommend that because you really don't have the data you need, and a lot of people will click, costing you money, and then they won't buy because it's not available yet. It's just pre-order. But at least it gets him the ability to test these ads. Now he's got some deep pockets, right? I'll just go ahead and say it. So he can invest that way. He can do that. But the point is, it's not you, Randall, don't worry. But the point is he can set the stuff up for pre-order, test the ads, and then get some information about, hey, okay, so these people are clicking, these people actually purchase, that's great, let's keep that data. And then let's figure out what's going to happen on day one and how much money I want to spend. So I might put $1,000 or $1,500 just that day on Facebook ads, but he is not really in the testing phase as much anymore. Yeah, he's still kind of he doesn't really know if it's going to work, right? Because he still has the question of if they're going to buy it or not because it hasn't been available yet. But it's way less testing now needed than what would happen if you didn't have that on pre-order. Does that make sense? So that's one strategy for it. But the point is, regardless of if you're using mailing lists, newsletter swaps with other people to get their mailing lists, you've got social media campaign, or advertising, which, by the way, those are my 3 buckets, right? Email marketing, advertising, social media. You got to get the eyeballs to that page if you want to get it to work. Let me just finish this section by explaining it this way. Imagine there's kind of like a line. I'm, by the way, vastly oversimplifying how algorithms work, but just imagine, for the sake of argument, Amazon has this algorithm has a line right here where if you touch the line, you kind of tickle the line, or maybe even go over a little bit, the algorithm starts to pay attention. It goes, okay, all right, this book is doing something. Okay, we got a little spike here. We'll take a look. Maybe give you a couple emails, right? We'll trickle them out over the next couple weeks. And if you keep hitting that line, it's going to be like, oh my God, yeah, this is great. If you go and spike way over that line, it immediately takes notice and it goes, okay, cool. You're obviously doing something right. We've got some data here. We're going to send this email out to 100,000 people now, and hopefully they'll buy your book. That's what we're trying to do when we spike. The problem is that line started down here back 10 years ago. Now it's up here. Okay, so that same spike that you used to do isn't tickling that algorithm. It's not hitting it. It's not spiking. It's not hitting it high enough. So when I say it takes more to do the same thing we used to be able to do, that's what I'm talking about. And it's not just as simple as too much competition. There's a lot of authors. That is true. There's a lot more books. It's not just because of AI. It's everything. It's all together. I mean, we're in a bad economy right now. Whatever you want to say. There's all sorts of reasons why the algorithm has gone from here to here. But it has. Okay, so again, oversimplifying, but picture it that way. If you're doing, and you've always done this, it may have worked when your spike looked like this and the line was down here, but now you're doing the same spike and the line's up here. So you got to invest more money. You got to have a bigger mailing list. You got to have other people. I hope that makes sense as a way of explaining it. Let me know if it doesn't. I can try to draw it again. I'm watching my video of myself doing it. I'm like, what the hell is that guy talking about? I just said it 7 seconds ago. So hopefully it makes sense. That is another reason why I prefer the slow launch. So even though I'm not making a spike, what I'm doing is I'm saying like, hey, I'm selling really well, okay? And so this line all of a sudden is irrelevant because I'm not trying to spike and hit that line and tickle the algorithm to go, I'm going to give you all the organic sales right away on your fast launch. Instead, I'm trying to say, listen, algorithm, I've got this perennial bestseller and it's just launched. It's going to be great. It's going to do fine for a long time. Here's the proof. Every day I've sold a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. The algorithm loves that as well. And I would argue, and this is sort of my bottom line for today's talk, I would argue that Amazon et al., all the other ones included, prefer this strategy today compared to the fast launch strategy of yesterday. Okay? A few reasons why. I've given you some of them, but I think they're moving more toward a marketplace where you don't have a lot of spikes that fizzle and die right away. They want some that are going to always, be selling well. And the reason is simple. That's better for the customer experience. If I go to Amazon right now and I look at a book that's number 1 and I look tomorrow and it's not even on the list, that's not a good experience. Like, there's that book. Where'd that book go? I don't remember how I got there. I just knew it was on the top 100 list in that category. Now I don't know, whatever. I don't know what it is. It may or may not ever get marketed to and get to see that book again, right? On the flip side, if I go and I see, okay, yeah, the top 100 books are all kind of the same, but the top 10 are all the same, even the same place. I get that marketing recency bias kicks in, and I say, okay, I just saw this one. I'm ready for a new book. I just finished last night. Now I'm ready to buy this one. Let me go back to Amazon. Oh, there it is. It moved from slot 3 to slot 4, but it's still right there, and you recognize it right away. That's one of many reasons I think Amazon prefers the slow launch, because it lets us position our new book into that category or categories in that spot where people are going to be able to see it. Therefore, Amazon's going to see it. That algorithm goes, okay, this book is selling well. And if you give it that same amount of effort, energy, and money, potentially even less, you can do this and build over time. Another reason why I think they prefer this slow launch is they've been screwing with the ranking system for about a year, at least. If you've done this, if you noticed, like a book on pre-order used to go live, and that same day you would get a rank because that makes sense. It's sold a certain amount of copies, and it knows how many copies had sold before. There's your rank. There's where you sit in the Amazon store, and therefore there's sort of a barometer for your organic reach on the Amazon Kindle store. They don't do that anymore. I don't know what they're doing or if something's broken, but it's been, I counted the last time we did this with Conundrum Publishing, it was 5 days, 4.5 days. from the pre-order ending to when the rank showed up on the dashboard. I ran a test and found out that I did get sale. I mean, obviously I knew I got sales every single day from the pre-order ending to the rank showing up. But when the rank showed up, the sales, the rank did not in any way, shape, or form reflect how many sales I had driven to that page. So they started over. They basically took the rank that I had at pre-order ending that should have gone live that day, and then I added a bunch of sales that should have, doubled, basically taking it from 100,000 to 50,000 or even 30 or 20,000, which is usually what I'm aiming for these, and started back down at 100,000. Okay, so I basically lost sales. I didn't lose the sales, but I lost the organic reach. I was pissed, right? Then I tested it again, and then again, and again, and I found that while the date at which that rank shows up may have decreased some, or sometimes it's even maybe longer, they're not really counting those sales that come in between the pre-order ending and the date launching. One way around this is I stopped doing pre-orders for some of my books to test that. Like I mentioned before this call, that I have a book that is on pre-order, but that's because it hadn't been written yet, and I wanted to just make sure I had time. Anyway, if you don't do pre-order and you just launch the book, the rank usually shows up within a day. But it is slower than it has been, and I don't want to rely on that rank because that rank, again, it's not the end-all be-all. Obviously, I want money in the bank, right? But that rank is a good reflection of how much organic reach the algorithm is putting toward your book. Because if the rank you can see the rank moving up and down, at least used to be, every hour it would go up and down, and you'd be able to say, okay, cool, what I did 3 hours ago actually moved that up. You used to be able to see that. And these days, it's a lot more static. They're just really slowing things down. And I believe it's on purpose. I believe they're trying to slow down a lot of these spikes from BookBub, right? So you go to BookBub, you get this, massive influx of 20,000 people downloading your book or 10,000 people buying it at 99 cents. And Amazon's algorithm says, oh, wow, there's a big spike here. And it would show up at number one. And then what happens tomorrow? The BookBub's over. People don't click it. The book goes and disappears from the charts. That's a bad customer experience. And I believe Amazon has been trying to round out these spikes in the way that they know, which is to tweak their algorithm a little bit. Okay, so I'm not here to say bad or good, Amazon sucks, or don't do. I'm just saying that's what I'm seeing. That's what the data suggests they're working toward. And again, I'm talking all the bookstores. I'm sure Barnes & Noble and Apple, if they were as robust at selling books as Amazon, would be doing the exact same things if they're not already pulling those levers. We just don't see it as much because there's not as much movement compared to Amazon. So, two strategies, fast launch, slow launch. You've heard it by now, but I like that second one. I like the slow launch quite a bit because if for no other reason, it lets me spread out some of my investment a little bit more. So it slows things down for me as well. And guys, I mean, I talk about productivity, I talk about motivation a lot right now, and I mentioned how discouraged I am with stuff. How much more stressful would it be if we had to do this massive fast launch every freaking time? And if we didn't, we just totally failed. So now we've invested all this money, and if we don't do that, we've invested the money and we don't get anything to show for it. So I'm here to say I believe the best strategy is this slow launch, at least right now. Maybe that'll change in a year and we'll find out that spikes are back, right? But for now, what I like to see is doubling my sales every day. If I can do that for a week, that's a perfect launch for me. It's very, very challenging to do a place like for Conundrum, which is my publishing company, because we just started building a list a little over a year ago, so it's not that big. And while we can do newsletter swaps, we have all these launches. We can't just keep going, dipping in the same buckets, right? Because we're publishing the same genre every single time. So it has to be much more organic, but that's another reason why this slow launch is better for this strategy. For me personally, like my Nick Thacker novels, I do have a big list. And I can send all at the same time, and people will click it, and I'll get a big spike. What I've found is that by splitting that list into chunks of increasing size, so start at 1,000, then the next day maybe 2,000, the next day 4,000, then 8,000, and up until I've hit the whole list. And then I, of course, this is an aside, but I always send, give ups and resends that people didn't open or didn't click or whatever. I'll send that again at least once. And if it just totally failed or I didn't think it went through, I'll send it again a third time. But the point is that initial push is going to be split up over 7 days. And what this does is, let's pick a number. It doesn't matter what the number is, it's arbitrary, but let's say 20% of the people you send to are going to buy. Okay, that's probably pretty reasonable. If you've been building a mailing list, you know that that's probably within reason of people who like you and want to hear from you. They're already reading your genre. 20% will buy. So if you send to 1,000 people, you get 200 sales on day one, right? If you send to 2,000 people the next day, you get 200 sales. Is that right? No, that's not right. 400 sales. What did I say? Yeah, 400 sales. And so on and so on. And so what that tells Amazon is, ooh, there's attention here. People want to buy this book. It doesn't know that you sent an email and you're just sort of gaming the system this way. And I say gaming, I don't mean that to be a bad thing. Like that's what they want. So it doesn't really matter how you get the people there, as long as they're buying and they're in the genre. Amazon's going to see that and reward that. And I found that to be true. I found that to be absolutely true. Yeah. So Robin says Fibonacci sequence. Yeah. So the first day send to 0 people. The next day send to 1 person. The next day send to 1 person. The next day send to 2, and then 3, and then 5. I can go on and on because I'm a Fibonacci. That golden ratio in there. Can't forget that either. 1.618 to 1. Anyway, so yeah, so figure out it doesn't. That might be a good way to do it. Try that. Don't start with 0, guys. Start with 1. But maybe it's 1,000. Then the next day it's also 1,000. Then 2,000. Maybe that's the secret to the universe. We just got to send the Fibonacci sequence to our mailing list. The point is, these numbers are arbitrary, but they are. It's important to increase them, unless you want to test something different. I wouldn't decrease, but maybe you want to test sending to the same amount. So take a list of 10,000 people, split it up into chunks of 500, or maybe let's say 1,000. That's probably more reasonable. And then for the next 10 days, send it to 1,000 people. Okay, it's a little bit more to manage and a little bit more to maintain. And I kind of like to see if I can juice the algorithm up, right, over time, which is why I sent to more people each time. And this makes sense too, because variance exists in statistics as well, of course. And so just because we pick 20% arbitrarily, and maybe you know the number, maybe it's 23% on average, always buy my book when I send. It's not going to be 23% every time you send that email, right? It could be 25, it could be 17, it could be 5. And then the last day, if it's 5, you kind of got screwed, right? Because now that the least amount of people bought your book that last day just happens. That's variance, but then now Amazon kind of screws up their algorithm. They're like, wait, I thought people liked this, but now there's all these people coming and nobody bought it. So I like to increase the amount because it just solidifies the chance that more and more people will buy every single day as this goes on. And I call that a slow launch because it doesn't all happen in one day. I think if we take all that effort and time and money that we want to put in one day and just spend it the same, but over the course of 7 days, I think you're going to find that, dollar for dollar, that launch is going to do better than the fast launch. Again, I'm not talking about just spending money. I'm talking about just doing newsletter swaps. I'm saying do all of it, but just instead of focusing on one day or even 1 week, focus on a whole week of 7-day promotions or 2 weeks of sending people to Amazon, and try to build it so that your biggest, loudest promotion happens 7 days later or 2 weeks later rather than on that day, because that's going to build up in the algorithm's mind, the algorithm's numbers. It's going to build up that amount of goodwill that you got. You're showing Amazon that not only can you sell on one day, you could do it over the course of 7 days. And I believe that's only going to help. One thing we didn't talk about, but that's also mathematically relevant, is the idea that the algorithm, the rank goes up whenever you get a sale. And so if you're doing this every day, your rank will go up a little bit more. And that's just another trigger for the algorithm to go, oh yeah, now the rank is going up too. And even though the algorithm's kind of in charge of the rank, it can do whatever it wants with it, it wants to see, hey, I didn't do anything here. This guy sent a bunch of people, and now the rank went up. Let's give it a little bit more organic reach. Let's see how high we can get it. Okay. Now I am anthropomorphizing an algorithm, and I recognize that. They don't think. That's not really how this all works. But I find that by doing it and kind of thinking it that way, I just imagine like this omniscient, all-powerful being living inside of a black box. I got to kind of talk to that person, right? Whoever's in that black box. I got to convince them that my stuff is worth it. And you do that through logical things and reasonable things. You can't just give the black box money. You can't just pay off the algorithm, right? But what you can do is pay for ads that send people to it and show it that it's selling over time. This makes sense. It's kind of a weird way to think about it or talk about an algorithm. But I find that we often, as indies, especially like at conferences when we all get drunk and high and then start talking about algorithms, we tend to villainize or vilify the algorithm. It just hates me. It loves romance, but it hates thriller, and comedy. Don't even try. And it's like, whoa, this isn't a person who has a vendetta against you or your genre. It's a machine, and it's a machine learning algorithm that is trying to do best for its master, which is Amazon, who wants to produce a better customer experience so it can make more money. That's all it cares about. Okay, and it has found that any number of these billion variables that we humans can't even potentially have in our heads at the same time, that are constantly changing, by pulling certain levers here and there, it can affect these variables and make our books go up or down. And again, it's not because it likes us or hates us. It's because it's trying to produce the best customer experience. So if your book is positioned well to have a good customer experience, and then you give the algorithm customers to experience it, and that experience is good, the algorithm will reward that. It's as simple as that. And I don't want that to sound like I'm oversimplifying, because that is literally all you got to do. Yes, the tactics can get tricky. Does this ad work over this ad? I don't know. Does this mailing list this person with the mailing list work better than this other one? I don't know. You got to test all that stuff. That's where experience comes to bear a lot in this industry, like doing stuff over and over again, working with people over and over again. You get to know, you get a sense for what's going to work and what's not. And even then, it's guesswork. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. I know I'm going to cook the spaghetti, I know it's going to be good, but I just don't know how long it's going to take. Throw it against the wall, we'll see. Okay, so I ran through a lot of that real quick. I gave you 2 strategies, the fast launch and the slow launch, and a little bit of history on both. And I think we're in the era of the slow launch. And if we're not, then it's working right now. You can take it from me, and you will be probably in your best interest to check out this idea of slow and try to put one together, because you might be early to the game, and that could be a benefit because there's not as much competition, not as many people doing this. People still love these fast launches. We authors love all the money. We want the big spike. We want that orange bestseller tag. I don't care about that. I want the money in the bank, right? Questions. If you're still here hanging out, thank you. I hope that helps. Again, I'm not here telling you have to do this. I am saying that, hey, I've seen this working better. But you know me, like I write thrillers. I write action-adventure thrillers. That is vastly different than space opera and vastly different than historical sweet romance. So your mileage will vary. I don't want to say may vary because it's going to be a little bit different. But I don't think that this is a genre-specific thing. I think it's pretty genre-agnostic. And I think launching anything online, just because of attention spans, we're talking humans now, not algorithms, but like attention spans, all that, it just seems to be less time to do stuff if we're trying to get a flash-in-the-pan result, if that makes sense. So I'm not chasing spikes. I'm not chasing orange bestseller tags. I think what I want is to build this goodwill, in meaning sales, over time with the algorithms that be, the powers that be. Because it's going to show them that I've got staying power, that it could be a good book, people like it, and then of course by the end of it, the early reviews are coming in. It all just sort of greases the wheel and gets it moving. And of course, let's talk physics. Like a wheel already moving, it's much easier to keep it moving than it is to stop it, right? Okay, so I'm going to shut up about physics and math because I don't actually know anything about those. Any questions you guys have, drop them in there. I see one coming in. We got about 10 minutes. If you've got anything that I want clarity on, if you're on another platform, come on over to Facebook real quick. Get in the group. I usually try to sit here to make sure that I'm not waiting, or someone's not trying to get in and then I haven't let them in yet, but I don't see anyone. So yeah, Tracy asked, how many weeks would you say is ideal for a slow launch? I would say 2 weeks is a full-length launch. Anything over that gets a little unwieldy, and unless you've got a massive budget, it's just really hard to carry past 2 weeks. That said, I really like the 1 week slow launch because it feels fast. I mean, you're spending a whole week really, really engaging with people if you do this right, engaging with readers. If you do direct sales, like paying attention to what I'm doing on the side, like I'm also selling on my own website, usually before the Kindle Unlimited version, so that I don't break the rules. But I'm offering upsells, paperbacks, audios, so I've got to have all that prepared. That's part of my pre-launch stuff. But it gets me the ability to talk about more promotional opportunities. So on day 1, I might talk about the book, and then on day 2, I'm like, hey, did you guys know I also have the audiobook ready? Day 3, hey, you can get a signed paperback. So after 1 week of that, after 7 days of that, I'm pretty tired. I don't want to do it anymore. So I like 1 week. That's the perfect launch for me. I'll do 7 to 10 days. That'll be a launch. And of course, day 1, it's available to buy on Amazon, but I might consider launching on my website first, like I just said. So I might do day 1 is actually on nickthacker.com/shop. And you can go grab the book there, and then 2 days later, it might come out on Amazon. So every touch point, or every opportunity here becomes a touch point opportunity. So meaning I get to launch on day 1 on my website, but then on day 3 it's on Amazon. That's 2 separate emails that I get to send, right? That brings up another good point that I should mention is, yes, you can send too many emails to your list. I don't think I would never accuse any author of doing that. I think we as authors are really, really hesitant to send more email. So you're probably already sending less than you should. So don't be scared to send every day of this launch. But that's another reason why I would only do a week or 10 days max. I wouldn't probably want to do 2 weeks of sending every single day because people are just going to get tired of it. They're going to get fatigued. If they already know on day 1 they're not going to buy the book for whatever reason, you're sending 14 more emails to them at least. They're going to get tired of that. But what I might do is send 1 email on day 1. If I'm not launching on my website, it's all just on Amazon, I might mention that on day 1. Like I said, over the first 7 days, I've split that mailing list up so I can send to more and more people every day. But then on the last day, I might send 3 times and say, hey, I've got this special thing I'm doing. If you go buy the book here and send me the receipt, I'll give you a Kindle. I don't know, whatever. Make something up. Don't do that. That's illegal. But you can do something like that. And then the last day, you've seen these 24 hours left. If you put some scarcity and some some time limits on this and do it real. Don't be an internet market scum where you just fake some shit and call it do something real. Say, hey, I'm going to do this, but I'm shutting it down because I'm tired and I'm going to go write the next book. So if you do it by the end of the day, I'll give you this. If you buy the book by the end of the day, you get this. Whatever. You do some kind of bonus. Then you can get away with emailing 2, 3, 4 times a day at the end, but only do that once. Okay, I didn't talk about that. So hopefully we don't have to dig into that too much, but sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I answered that. Good. Answered your next question. Randall said, I view that algorithmic trigger point as a goalpost. Yeah. And you know what they say about goalposts? They're movable. The algo, once triggered, moves the goalpost in 2 different directions and gives you not only a daily goal, vertical, but a new sustained sales goal, horizontal. Then over time. Oh, he wrote a whole novel here. No, great comment. Yeah. I was trying to make sure there wasn't a question in there. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I oversimplified the line. This is the goalpost that he's talking about, the algorithm. It moves hourly, minutely, I don't know. And the point is, even though it was down here generally 10 years ago, it's up here generally now. And so it's just harder to use those spikes to sort of tickle that algorithm. The goalposts have moved too far, in a sense. The last thing he said is that the pay-to-play they've attached to this algorithm via Amazon ads is a whole other subject. It is a whole other subject. I will say, too, let's not vilify Amazon for doing this because that's just the nature of the game these days. A lot of people, that I was coaching someone, they were like, well, yeah, I don't like Amazon ads because it's pay-to-play. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. So what do you want to do? And they're like, I want to do Facebook ads. And I'm like, it's just a different company. You still have to pay for those, There's no difference. If you want to get attention, you got to pay for it these days. That's just the way it is. Yes, there's always the exception that proves the rule. If you're a Kardashian, okay, but you're not. You're here listening to me, and if you don't have better things to do than listen to me, you're not famous enough to go do this without ads. So get in the game. Go get some ads done. You can use Amazon. You can use Facebook. Yeah, it feels kind of shitty that you're paying Amazon for a service that they should provide us because they're already taking a percentage of our royalties. Now they're sort of double dipping. I get it. I've heard all the arguments. They're not necessarily wrong, but everything is pay to play. Everything is pay to play, everything is pay to play. So if you want to go succeed in ads, get over that. Use some Amazon ads. Use some Facebook ads. And if you are wondering how I do that, that's literally what we just talked about a couple days ago in that overview call for Author Ascend. So another sales pitch for you. No, go get in that. It's interactive. It's a live call. I'm still setting platforms up and all that. So there's some learning curve, but for me. But the idea is to get you guys deeper into this stuff and get you trying stuff. I'll show you my ads, my dashboards. You can see how this stuff works. And that's just for 1 month. We're just talking, Facebook ad strategies. There's 2 strategies that I cover. But there's a whole plethora of things coming up. There's all kinds of stuff we're going to deep dive into, the publishing and writing and crafts, all this stuff that we're talking about here, but deeper and better and more thorough. And then there's a lot more follow-up because we're doing 3 separate calls rather than just trying to cram it all into one. So go check that out. That's at learn.bookcareerinayear.com. I'll put a link on the homepage of the main website, bookcareerinayear.com. But you should be able to get in there and sign up. $29 a month. It gets you access to all kinds of stuff. I'm giving away books in it. There's cool stuff in there, guys. So yeah, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go check that out or ping me. I'm happy to kind of answer questions about it too. Are there any other questions before we go on what we talked about on launches. Any last minute tips or tricks or questions that you want more clarity on. If not, then I'll just shut up and go eat lunch. But if you, I don't want to steal any of your time. We started a few minutes late, so I'll get a couple more seconds here. I don't see anything coming up. Yeah, if I missed one earlier, just copy paste and drop it in. We did lose a couple people toward the end, so I think hopefully people got what they wanted and then ducked. Hopefully they didn't get to the end and that was useless. I'm gonna leave. But I don't know. I'm gonna drink my drink and wait for questions. You guys seen these? They're energy drinks full of chemicals. They're amazing. No sugar though. That's good. And this one tastes like, it's called Witch's Brew. It tastes like caramel apple. Do you say caramel apple? Because that's wrong. It's caramel. Okay, bye. No, all right. I'm not seeing anything else, so we will shut this off, and we'll be back at it next week, I believe. Yeah, I think that's the second. So we'll do a live stream next week, and then the week after, probably we'll cancel because I will be in Vegas. If you're going to be at 20 Books, say hello. Oh, we got 2 last-minute questions. Okay, we'll do this quick. Robin asked, does your ARC team influence launch week at all? I didn't talk about that much because it is a little... it does. It's not really... should I explain it? I usually view my ARC team as almost like beta readers. I call them my street team because it's a mix of ARC and beta. It's not. I've never really defined well what they are. But I use them during the editing process. So that's the last thing that I do before I launch the book. However, what I've done recently, as of the last couple of years, I've sent it to the street team. It's about 200 people. I can expect to get about 30 to 50 reviews on launch day or thereabouts from them, which is helpful. And I have them send me typos and things like that. So another reason to do a slow launch is if everybody gets my book on day one, everybody sees the typos that are still there on day one, or whenever they read the book. And Amazon doesn't actually update the book on people's Kindles because that would be too nice of them. They just let that stupid typo ride forever until somebody really tries hard to get the new version, and they don't. So what I do with the ARC team is I use them to get those last minute typos. And then on launch day, if I'm doing a slow launch, I get 200 sales. The next day I get 400. So there's just more time for me to go and fix those typos as the first week or two goes on. So that's sort of how I use them. But that is when I say mailing list is separate. That's the people who are just the general population of Nick Thacker readers. They want to go get the book. They don't want any street team or ARC activity. They don't care about that. So it's a separate thing. Randall, where would I place a BookBub featured deal in a launch strategy, long or short? Well, if you mean the featured deals that I do once every, I think I get one every 3 months. I've had one BookBub featured deal every 3 months for the past six or 7 years now, which is crazy. That's awesome. But you can't do a new book. You can't launch a new book with a BookBub featured deal. They have the new release alerts, and then they also have a BookBub featured new release deal or something. I can't remember what they call it, but it's not a featured deal like we know, and it's not a new release alert that's free. It's this ridiculous $900 bullshit that doesn't actually generate any income. So I don't like them. I've tested this twice, spent about $1,800 trying this out, and they kind of they literally fell flat. I did not like launching on BookBub at all. Now, BookBub also offers an ads platform, and that is a really, really great place to launch a book if you're launching a book for a lower price. If you've got a book that's 99 cents, certainly if you tried to launch it for free, which would be weird, but you could do that. BookBub ads are a great lever to pull. Again, assuming you've done some testing. Don't just jump onto BookBub ads platform tomorrow and try to learn it before your book launch on Saturday. That's not going to work. You got to really test this stuff. You got to get it out there. Fail a little bit, spend some money, figure out what works. Basically BookBub, like I said, all ads are testing. With BookBub, it's the particular flavor of testing is audience building. So you really want to get that. That's kind of the only lever you can pull there. You can change cost per click or impression. I always do cost per mille, which is CPM per 1,000 impressions with BookBub, and you can change how much you spend and all that. And that's something to test for sure. Your ad creative matters a little bit, but the real big test is getting that audience to work well, which isn't easy to do, and you have to test quite a bit. So I might do that for a launch if it's a 99-cent book, but honestly, I probably am not launching at 99 cents. And anything higher than that starts to get pretty quickly diminishing returns. My books I launch at $6.99, just the way I've always done it, and I make a lot of money that way because people are used to buying them at $6.99. I bet I could get people excited about a 99-cent launch, but excuse me, we're talking about BookBub's audience, which is readers who are already primed to get a deal. So they may not even be the best readers for me because I'm going to sell them a book at $6.99 at some point, and they may just balk and be like, well, I get all my books from BookBub. Great, stay over with BookBub. So I hope that helps. I typically don't do BookBub in a launch strategy. It's just not something Promos, absolutely. BookBub feature deals every 3 months, absolutely. That's been a huge boon for my career. But yeah, I don't think in terms of launching with a BookBub any way, shape, or form. All right, I think that's enough. If you still got a question after we're gone, feel free to drop it in, and I will try to hit it soon enough. The next few days or so. But thanks for being here. We'll see you next week, and happy book.